Hey everyone, Reed here with Big Strong Book, and today I'm going to be talking about The Shadow of the Torturer, the first quarter of the Book of the New Sun by Wolfe. So this book has been one that I have been meaning to read for a very long time now, and Wolfe is an author that I've been trying to get into, but just haven't been able to make my way through one of his novels completely yet until now. Um, Wolfe is obviously he's very highly revered in the science fiction fantasy world, but he's also very elusive to many readers. I think because of the high barrier to entry that the way he tells his stories is. He uses very archaic language. It's very dense prose with a plot that kind of moves along as if it's like a wheel stuck in sap. It's going, but it's very slow. I would say extremely slow. I will say just right off the bat, because I want to make it clear that I did like The Shadow of the Torturer. That being said, it's very difficult to review this book, and of course, this that I have here is the Tor Essentials Omnibus Edition, which has the first two books of the Book of the New Sun. So I'll get a little more into what that whole series encompasses. So to go back, Wolfe is an author that I've known of the Book of the New Sun for a very long time. I've also known of his Wizard Knight duology that came out in the early 2000s. A couple of years ago, I tried to read The Knight, which is the first book in his Wizard Knight series. Tried to get into it. I maybe got a quarter of the way through it, and I DNF'd for the time being. I do want to go back and read that duology in its entirety. It's just, you really have to be in the right mindset, not even headspace, just like your mindset, and you have to know going into it that it's going to be something that's not really going to be heavy on plot at all, not even light on plot. I mean, there is a plot with this book, but it's just about the protagonist, Severian, and how he views the world. And like many of his other books are, I don't know if all of his novels are first person narrators, and that's another thing with the narration. But I think that's the mode that Wolfe is the most comfortable in. So on the note of first person narrators, another reason why Wolfe is maybe a little more elusive to some readers, or certainly one of the reasons why his books are renowned that multiple rereads are rewarding for the readers, is his narrators are unreliable narrators. They'll describe something, we all know what unreliable narrators are. They just kind of lead, whether intentionally or not, they kind of lead us into a falsehood about something that they're encountering, whether it's a nature of themselves, a part of the plot, something like that. And with Severian, the unreliable side comes from the fact that he, says he has a perfect memory, but then admits that he forgets things about certain events. That's just at an absolute baseline. I'm sure that there are many things that I didn't even get, that I didn't even catch on this first read through. So for those that aren't familiar with what the Book of the New Sun is, this was a science. I've seen it labeled as both science fiction and science fantasy. I am going to use the term science fantasy because it's if you didn't know much about the background of the world that this is set in, I wouldn't blame anyone for thinking at first glance that this book is just purely that it is a fantasy story. it seems that way to somebody who might be coming into this fresh, but it's not. I'll call it science fantasy like I've seen it described. So the Book of the New Sun takes place on this world called Earth. Now, Earth is spelled Urth. So take from that what you will. As I mentioned, not fully fantasy. So it's set in a world called Earth, and there is a ruler. Again, this is all as I understand it, because there's a lot that's opaque about this world, and a lot that I have still to discover. Set on Earth, there's a leader called the Autarch. I believe he rules over everybody on Earth. There are northern lands that are described as being not necessarily uninhabited, but outside of like the broader concern of what I understand the civilization within this world to be. There's a place called the Citadel, and the Citadel is presented as this big complex. Then there's also another place called, I think, the House of Absolutes. There's a city that is a huge. It seems both like a small town and a huge city called Nessus, and there's a thing called that they can see from the Citadel that's far in the distance called the Wall, and beyond that is a city called Thrax, and those are the only big points on the map. On the map of the mind, of course, there is no map provided. Those are the big places that we hear about along the way. So within this world, again, ruled by the Autarch, and there's a rebel. It seems like there's a rebellion or a rebel force led by a figure named Voldalis, who factors in a little bit to the plot of this first book. And within the Citadel, there are numerous guilds, and one of the guilds is a torturers guild. The protagonist and narrator, Severian, who I assume is this figure. I love the covers of these books as well. I believe that is Severian on the cover with his sword. He is, or at least when the novel starts, he is an apprentice torturer. He's an apprentice in this guild, and he's relaying this story to us much later in his life, after it seems that he has acquired a great deal of power. It seems that way, at least. He speaks of being on a throne and all of that, and we see him journey along and come into contact with these beings or other individuals. That's what the book is. This book is, while there is a linear plot, somewhat of a linear plot in terms of A to B to C to D. At least I interpret that. I've heard it said that in this series it's actually not so linear as you think, but it appears linear, and that might be part of the puzzle and the trick of this. But Severian starts out as an apprentice, and he has a very brutal occupation, and part of this journey is, or seems to be, him coming to terms with the nature of who he is as a human, or as what we assume are humans, and as a torturer, and his view of the world. And he's someone who can see the beauty in the world, and he takes in this battered and beaten dog. And then there is a female prisoner who he grows quite close to, and he shows mercy to creatures or to individuals. He isn't somebody who is completely unredeemed from the world. He's very sensitive. He's very naive, and he wants a connection with someone or something. That there's kind of an undercurrent of romanticism in this, almost, that really starts to come out kind of in the last third or fourth of the book. But again, and I this plot is very simple, and for the sake of this video, I'm not gonna spoil even the one significant event that I think happened, that happens early on, that I think ultimate, I guess what I'm trying to say is, I feel like I could spoil every single scene in this, but actually not really spoil that much, if that makes sense. Like the plot is at its base level is quite basic, but the the themes that are at work, and the more importantly, the way that this story is presented is it's almost like mystical. I've heard it described, and I agree with this, that this book is almost like just kind of walking through a dream. A dream that just kind of keeps rolling and keeps rolling and keeps rolling, and that things might have linearity, things might make sense, but there's still strange things that happen. And given the end of this, it pretty much is like you just wake up from the dream, and you're wanting to get back to it. And when Gene Wolfe wrote the Book of the New Sun, he, as I understand it, wrote the entire thing, and the whole Book of the New Sun saga altogether, I think would be a 1,000-page story, so a very long single novel. I think it was at his publisher's request, or an agent, or whoever it was, that wanted him to split what was a 1,000-page long story into four 250 odd page novels, or four 250-page parts. So I read The Shadow of the Torturer, which was published as a novel unto itself, as a book, but it is not standalone in the slightest. And that's the difficulty with reviewing it, and saying, do I recommend this? I don't know if I do, because the way that it is very much so just reading the first quarter of a 1,000-page novel. It is a complete book in a way, but it isn't. I guess it does have an ending. The ending of Shadow of the Torturer is, it makes sense. It makes sense that is kind of that's the cut to black point in the story. But I will be jumping into the second book very soon. The second book is called the Claw of the Conciliator. I will be jumping into that soon, and I'm sure into the Sword of the Lictor, or Lictor, which is book 3, and then the Citadel of the Autarch, which is book 4. Then there is a fifth book, a coda, or an epilogue to the series, called The Earth of the New Sun, which I think most enjoy that. I think might be some out there that view The Earth of the New Sun as kind of a, not necessarily unnecessary, but maybe not as strong of a work as the Book of the New Sun. Again, it's tough, and that's about as much as I can say about this. I very much so enjoyed this work. I think it was very worthwhile to read. And as I mentioned before, it's something that you have to be in the right mindset, because the prose is dense. I don't think it's unmanageable. I would say the most confusing part of the book was the first one or two chapters. Past that, the book really becomes more and more clear, and more linear. It's steeped in all of this, all of this great language, and I like the sound of stories. so I enjoyed that part of it. Uh, and I'm looking forward to see, where the rest of Severian's story goes. But I'm only 25% of the way there. Or if you count the Earth of the New Sun, I'm really only 20% of the way there, it seems. So, yeah, I would recommend Shadow of the Torturer, and I can only hope that this continues. And it's not something where I'm expecting things to get clear or expecting answers. Just that this journey that I guess the only thing that you can hope for in this is to feel some sort of reward at the end, at least that you feel satisfied and happy that you have spent the time that you have with this story and this world and these characters. I will say a quick thing about the characters. Dorcas, there's a lot there, a lot to, and I'm not going to get into spoilers, but I just feel like there's a lot to unpack, and I'm looking forward to seeing where her character leads. Dr. Talos and Baldanders, I think that I thought that they were very hilarious, and again, looking forward to seeing where it goes. It's just because of the nature of the book, it's difficult to do this review. Um, that's about the main things I have. It's very good to see in if you love just language and in hearing this character of Severian narrate these experiences in such a opaque way. It's opaque and it's transparent at the same time. It's strange. Then I would recommend it. If you're up for a little bit of a challenge, this isn't something that you can just glide through. It's something, and I'm a quick reader, and I had to force myself to read slowly to really drink in the words. And I feel like it took me about a week to read, and I feel like I still read The Shadow of the Torturer much too fast. I might even try to read The Claw of the Conciliator way slower. So, again, hopefully this is a story where the reward and the justification for the time spent will come forward a little bit more with The Claw of the Conciliator, and then hopefully further on with the third and the fourth books. So, Shadow of the Torturer, or The Shadow of the Torturer by Gene Wolfe. If you have read that or read the Book of the New Sun, let me know what you think, and I will see you guys next time.